Hello, welcome everybody. We're super excited to have you here today. We love having a conversation with our amazing MBA friends. We today will be talking about MBA programs for working professionals. And so this is a great topic if you're considering that you might want to continue working while pursuing an MBA. There's many different ways you can do that. There's lots of flavors of MBA that you can do. So we're excited today to talk with some amazing colleagues from Admissions. Before we get started, though, I do want to take just a minute to talk a bit about the work that we do here at Forté. My name is Ashley. I'm the director of pre-MBA programs at Forté, which means I get the opportunity to work with candidates like yourself that are on this journey to an MBA program. At Forté, we're here all about changing the balance of power in the workplace, helping women realize their opportunities. We are an amazing alliance of great corporate partners, undergraduate and graduate business schools, and amazing women like yourself that make up this network that we have. Here at Forté, we're all about helping you reimagine what's possible, helping women accelerate their careers. And we do that through the support of some of our amazing program partners. So today you'll get a taste of some of the MBA programs that we have the wonderful privilege to work with. That we do work with over 30 executive and professional MBA programs. So if you're thinking about working professional programs, there's lots of different organizations out there, lots of different universities out there across the globe that can help you achieve your MBA goals. We do webinars like today throughout the year. So I wanted to make a plug, as we were just discussing before we got started. Believe it or not, tomorrow is May. So we have a couple of events coming up in May that might be of interest. The first is an alumni panel that will be taking place next week, May 7th. And then a little later in the month, an opportunity to learn about the amazing opportunities if you're interested in an MBA in either Europe or the UK. So like this webinar, free and an opportunity for you to connect with some of our amazing partner schools. Also, if you're in the application process now, if you're thinking about applying to business school in the fall, I do want to mention our MBA Launch on Demand program. This is an opportunity to really get everything you need to know about the application process. So help with things like getting letters of recommendation, writing great essays, understanding your great application or school choice. And that is an open enrollment program. The first deadline is actually today, April 30th. So if you're interested in that, my colleague Melissa will be dropping some links in the chat. Finally, I want to give a big thank you to the sponsors for today's event. So we work with some amazing business school partners, and a big thank you to these 5 in particular that made today's program possible. So if you have any questions as we go through, we will certainly have some time to answer those, but I also will let you know you're welcome to reach out to us after today's event. So with our time together, here's how we're going to kind of run the show. I am going to have our panelists introduce themselves so you know who's here with us today. They'll share with them, obviously, their name, where they work, and then give you an idea of the types of MBA programs that we're offering at their institutions, again, to give you an idea of all the different flavors that exist out there for MBAs. Then I have some questions for our panel. So I'll go through and kind of ask some questions based on what we typically hear from candidates. I'll ask our panelists some prearranged questions, and then we will save some time for questions from the audience. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the Q&A as we go forth. No need to wait till the end. Feel free to go ahead and drop those in. And then we will wrap up at the top of the hour. So with that, I'm going to do panelist introductions, or I'm going to have them introduce themselves. I will not introduce them. They'll do it themselves. But I'm going to ask them each to introduce themselves. I'm going to go in the order that I see you all on my screen. So Jessica, you're up first.
Wonderful. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Merritt. I am an associate director in the graduate admissions office at the Boston University Questrom School of Business. I oversee admission to our in-person part-time MBA designed for working professionals. And then we also have a residential 2-year full-time MBA program, as well as a fully online part-time program as well.
Thanks, Jessica. Casey.
Yeah, welcome everyone. My name is Casey Jones. I'm the Director of Recruitment and Admissions for our portfolio of graduate programs at the University of Illinois Geese College of Business. We're maybe a bit unique in that we no longer offer an on-campus option for the MBA. We do have some specialized master's programs on campus, but we do have a fully online MBA program known as the EMBA. no requirements to come to campus at any time for that program, but there are a lot of opportunities to do so either on campus or through immersion trips or meetups in regional locations across the US and globally.
Sophia.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Sophia Cormack. I'm the Assistant Director of Recruiting for our full-time program. That is a recent shift for me. The last 2 years, I've been working with our professional or part-time students. So very happy to be back in this space. We offer several different schedules of the MBA. We have our traditional full-time program, our professional program, our executive MBA, our online MBA, and we also have a hybrid MBA, which launched about 2 years ago. And it's a mix of our online and our on-campus MBAs.
Thanks, Sophia. Chris.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Healy. I work for Alliance Manchester Business School, part of the University of Manchester over in the UK. I head up recruitment and marketing across our suite of MBA programs. So that consists of our traditional full-time MBA, and then we have 2 programs aimed at working professionals. First one is our Manchester Global MBA, which has been in existence since 1992, which is more akin to a hybrid executive MBA. And then we also have our Global Executive MBA, which was launched about 5 years ago, which is a much smaller program of professionals who are even more senior in their careers.
Thanks, Chris. Jen.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jen Lambton, and I am an Assistant Director of Admissions at the Johns Hopkins Carey Business School. Been here about 3 years, absolutely love it. I primarily assist applicants to the flexible part-time MBA, but we have a bunch of MBA programs at Hopkins. Dual degrees with nursing, medicine, biotechnology, government. We have a full-time in-person MBA in Baltimore and several 30-credit Masters of Science programs. So lots of options and lots of people happy to talk through it with you.
Awesome. Thank you. So I think that was a good start because hopefully for those in the audience, you understand that there are lots of different options out there. So certainly there is an MBA out there that will fit your schedule and your career goals. So with that being said, we know that there are lots of different MBAs. So when we say a program for working professionals, Sophia, what does that mean? What does a working professionals program mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're looking at a working professional program, it's going to be 2 things. One, it's going to be for students who want to keep their full-time jobs while also going back to school. So when you think about a full-time program, you're quitting your job, you're putting your life on pause, you're going to school full-time. So when you're looking at a working professional program, you're most likely there are going to be several different schedules. So you're either doing online classes or you're doing evening classes or weekend classes. So that's kind of one aspect of the working professional program. And I think the other part of it is also it's a great track for students who are looking to accelerate their career in their industry that they're already in. The one that I always use, because Rice is located in Houston and energy is really big. So for our students who are looking to stay in the energy industry, but maybe they're looking to do a slight shift or move up in their company, the working professional program is a really great chance for them because they get to have that industry knowledge and grow as they're doing the MBA. So that's kind of where most of our professional or part-time students are.
Great answer. Yeah, it's the opportunity to keep that job that you might want to stay in that industry, certainly. And kind of to that end, you mentioned, Sophia, that working professionals program might be good if you're kind of a career accelerator. Jessica, what are kind of other differences in candidate profiles between full-time programs and working professionals that you've seen?
Absolutely. So more broadly speaking, I will say full-time students tend to be a bit earlier career, maybe like 3 to 6 years. And as Sophia was mentioning, a full-time program, usually students are looking to make more of a major career change. So switching industry, function, or both. And usually looking for a more like immersive experience, being able to do an internship, global treks, and things along those lines. For part-time, again, really great for students who are looking to advance in their current career industry, and kind of accelerate, tend to be early to mid. So, I would say typically like 5 to 11 years, somewhere in that range. Candidates, again, looking for promotions, looking for leadership development, expanding their skills in their current role. I will also say looking for convenience and flexibility is really important for our working professionals. That's not to say that we don't have working professionals who want to make a big career change, but might have to just be more thoughtful of maybe focusing on a change in function first and then maybe a change in industry down the road. But folks who are looking to really make a major career switch are typically looking for that full-time program.
Great insight. Thanks, Jessica. Anybody else want to chime in on kind of any differences that they see between kind of your average full-time candidate, your average residential candidate, and your average professional candidate? Okay, great.
Actually, I'll just
yeah,
jump
go
in
ahead,
real
Casey.
quick. I think one of the benefits of a professional program and something that we look for is for students to bring experiences that they are facing in work into the classroom and vice versa, and really applying that almost immediately. So I think that's a big benefit of doing them side by side, and certainly something that at least our team is looking for in the admissions process too.
That's really a great point. Yeah, there's not this delay, right? Because if you're in a full-time program, even between starting the program and doing your internship, there's almost a year of lag. Whereas in a professional program, you might experience something at work on Monday and be able to that night or that weekend get some real-time feedback from faculty or your peers. So I think that's a great point. Thanks so much for bringing that up, Casey. The other kind of category of program that we mentioned as we were doing introductions that I think has a lot of misinformation out there about it are executive MBA programs. And sometimes candidates ask, like, do I have to be an executive? Do I need to have the word executive in my title? Chris, what is an executive MBA program? Does a candidate have to be an executive to do an executive MBA?
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. I think that's a very good question. I think we're going to put that question in our next brochure, I think, because it is one that comes up time and time again. To answer that question, we'll take a look at both of the MBA programs that I mentioned we have at Manchester. So I mentioned about the hybrid global MBA program that is delivered from our campuses in Dubai, Hong Kong, Singapore, Shanghai, and of course, Manchester in the UK. Now, the average age of students on that program is 36. So you might think, given Ashley's question, that we would be swaying towards, well, perhaps you do need to be, quite senior in your career or have maybe that word executive. But that's actually not the case, because when we look at our admissions requirements for that program, it is the exactly same admissions requirements as our full-time MBA, which is 3 years of professional experience. Granted, that average age suggests that the average person in the class has over 10 years of experience, which is true. But what we are seeing more and more, and it's happening more in Western countries, really, we're seeing younger candidates apply for professional and executive programs at the moment. People who, 5-10 years ago, if I'd have seen their equivalent CVs, I would have been assuming that they were going to embark on a full-time MBA, whether in the US, whether in the UK. But because people are, I think, in organizations that they value or in industries that they like, they are becoming perhaps a bit more risk averse to undertaking a full-time MBA, which is one of the reasons why there's been a significant growth in professional MBA programs across the world. And then on our, what I would class as our traditional global executive MBA, the average age of students on that program is 41. So again, that does perhaps go more towards Ashley's point of, okay, then perhaps you do need that word executive, or you need to be in such a senior position. And some of that is true for that program, in that we do look for 8 years of professional experience as a minimum. But what I've also seen, and I think this is an unfortunate thing, but it's also reality, unfortunately, is we are overcoming barriers when it comes to having female participation on MBA programs. For example, at Manchester, recently we had 46% of the class being female students on our full-time MBA. I'm sure many of my colleagues here today would have similar statistics on their full-time programs, and I'm sure in the next couple of years or so we will be at a 50-50 gender parity split on our full-time MBA program. On our global MBA, especially the one delivered in our campus in Shanghai, we even had 70% female participation in that class recently. But on the executive MBA, there's still that barrier when it comes to having females embark on that executive MBA. So I guess the points that I'm making there is we are encouraging more female. We want to see more female applicants on that executive MBA, and if that means that they may not necessarily have the exact amount of senior level of experience that we may ordinarily prefer, that's not necessarily going to be a barrier, because that is the thing for us. It's about removing the barriers, to looking at applications holistically when it comes to female applicants on that global executive MBA. So overall, I think, no, you don't need that word executive, or that you don't need to be, a managing director, for example, to apply for the very top executive MBA programs, but also for the professional MBA programs. It just depends, in my eyes, and this is the important thing, what is convenient for you at this precise moment in your life, if you're thinking of doing an MBA in 2025 or 2026. Of course, if you're thinking of an MBA in 2028, 2029, well, that question is still valid, but it would be for in a couple of years' time. So hopefully that helps.
Chris. And I think regardless of the format of MBA, candidates rightfully see the MBA as a significant investment of time and effort, and certainly monetary resources. And I think to that end, rightfully so, candidates expect to see an ROI. So Jen, I'm hoping you can share with us kind of two things. One is kind of what's the timeline look like? So as an MBA candidate in a working professional program, what timeline of ROI am I looking at? When am I going to have to wait around to see some return on my investment? And then are there any other considerations outside of salary that candidates can expect from an MBA, whether that be like promotion, benefit, things like that? Love to hear your thoughts, Jen.
Sure. Thanks, Ashley. So when you first assigned this question to me, I thought of the obvious, right? I went to the Johns Hopkins Carey Employment Outcomes Report, got some basic data, right? So part-time students at Carey, they report a like about a 50% salary increase 3 years after graduation, 70% 5 years after graduation. Lots of students are going to be getting promotions while they're in the program, especially if you kind of lean into that executive career coaching that you get at a lot of flexible programs. But ROI, I think, means something different to probably to maybe everyone that's here today, aside from the obvious monetary considerations. So, what are you coming into the program looking to get out of it? I talked to an applicant recently. I think he made about like $250,000, but he wasn't happy in his career. So maybe he's going to be working with his career coach to find something that pays less, but is much more satisfying. Um, I mean, any of us can ask ChatGPT average salary with a bachelor's degree in business versus MBA. If you want something concrete, that's going to give you part of the picture. But I think a promise, at least at a school like Johns Hopkins, with an MBA, you are going to be having opportunities available to you in the future that you wouldn't otherwise. You're going to have a lot more confidence leading teams, leading projects, and ultimately growing your network. So I think this is a great question, and I encourage everyone to really think about what it means to you, and talk about it with admissions professionals like us.
I might just add on, and I completely agree with everything Jen said. I think when looking at working professionals specifically, going back to the point Casey made, that real-time application is so huge, and that's immediate return on investment, right? The ability to immediately start applying what you're learning in the MBA to your work. And many working professionals attribute the part-time MBA to getting a promotion and are able to get a promotion before even finishing the degree. So just kind of want to hit that on the head a little bit. And I think another thing that's becoming increasingly important to students is being able to make an impact. It's not just the monetary value, it's giving back to society, it's making a positive impact, it's creating change, and that is a significant return on your investment as well.
Thank you both. I think great advice around that and how to frame the experiences that you're getting from an MBA program, because it's not just that you end up with the degree, but there's all these other benefits, the network, the possible promotion, salary, very practical things, all great pieces to consider. So for candidates that are thinking about working professional programs, obviously there's a lot of balance that they need to do because they are now in school and they have a job and likely have a life. They might have family, they might have obligations outside of school and work. Casey, what advice do you have for candidates when it comes to finding balance or finding integration between all these pieces?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost is trying to figure out or find as much information as possible about what the requirements of the program or programs you're interested in are. So when are classes? What are the requirements to be in attendance? Are they evenings? Are they weekends? Are they online? But what does online look like? That's really just your starting block, though. So what goes beyond the classes? Are there group projects? What is the expected requirement for, number of hours that you're looking at? How flexible is your program? Are you locked into taking, whatever, 2 courses simultaneously, 4 courses simultaneously, or do you have more flexibility in completing those degree requirements as well? And then what, optional opportunities are there or required opportunities? Is there a 1 week full-time orientation where you're going to have to take some vacation time to attend that? Or are there, in our program, we have opportunities for immersion trips. And while those are completely optional, you should probably be considering if that's something that you can make plans for as well, because as many of my colleagues have mentioned, it's more than just the degree. It's taking advantage of all of those opportunities. So you want to take that into consideration. when really looking at the number of hours and the length to complete the program. Talk to students in the program, talk to admission counselors like ourselves, talk to alumni to really get the deep insights. Reading the website, going to a webinar can be great, but we are here to help you. Most programs offer an opportunity to talk with students or alums in the program and really get that advice and that information as well. Once you've kind of identified what the time commitment is going to look like, I really recommend, I'm a schedule person, but I really recommend looking at your calendar and carving out, okay, what is this going to look like? I've committed myself to things and I'm like, okay, I've got an hour over a lunch that I can do every day. That gives me 5 hours a week. Well, then I don't have a lunch, right? And then I don't have any time to go outside for a walk when the weather is nice. So is that really feasible? And the answer is yes. Like I'm not trying to dissuade you of not doing an MBA program, but make sure what you're setting forward is really realistic for the next couple of years of your life. And I think that brings me to my final point is find opportunities that you may need to step back somewhere. So that could be in your professional or personal life. Maybe, we talk a lot about opportunities for promotions while you're in the program. And that's certainly something that we see really often, but maybe it is a time that you're not going after that next promotion or job opportunity within the foreseeable future because you're focusing a little more of your time on your academic studies. The vice versa is maybe you need to step back and or ask for help with your childcare, with other responsibilities. Maybe it's not the time to be president of your PTO or your local chamber of commerce. And those are opportunities you may have had in the past or that will become available when you have more time. But asking for help and learning to say no or step back from some other commitments, I think can be really beneficial in making sure that this is feasible and does fit into your life. I think you brought up a good point, Ashley, of like figuring out what works best for you too. Is it integration or is it really a little bit more of a separation? I try to integrate, but I find that I'm actually much better when I can separate things. So putting away my phone or turning off my email from this other commitment and focusing, hey, I've got to do my full paying job. But these are hours that I'm committing to checking my email and having conversations with my team members. And I think that's really identifying what works best for you as an individual.
Great advice, Casey. I think that's really important. Yeah. And I think that's going to take some self-reflection to know, to your point, is that balance? Is that integration? What does that look like? What are the other pieces that are going to be happening in your life? And I think that's something we often advise candidates when they're looking at a working professionals program is, you might be in this program for 2 to 5 years, depending on kind of the format. What are the other things that are going to be going on in your life, as much as you can predict those, that you're going to need to balance, whether that's, again, family obligations or other things that you want to achieve, whether that be professionally or personally, as well. So great
Actually,
advice.
I think that's one thing you might have a question about up front too, right? Like what is not just the flexibility from a day-to-day, but hey, something comes up, a family member gets sick, and I know we don't want to predict those things, but what does happen if I need to take a semester off, right? What does that look like? Can I come back? Can I change my modality of the program? Those are all good conversations and kind of planning for your options as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that also, some of you mentioned hybrid programs or opportunities where you might be going to campus or you might be traveling. That's also something you can think about. Is that going to match with what your life or work schedule allows? So if you travel all the time for work, going to campus even once a week or every other week might not be a feasible option. With an executive program, you might only be going to campus once a month, something like that. So again, thinking about those obligations. And so oftentimes, my recommendation is the first thing is to do as much self-reflection as possible before you start looking at programs, so you know what's actually going to match, because otherwise they all sound good. You all do a really good job marketing all your programs and they all sound amazing, but it's really about finding that program that's going to be the right fit for you, certainly. The other piece I kind of want to transition to a little bit here is more on kind of the application side. So oftentimes the requirements of an application to a full-time program, a part-time or an executive program all look pretty similar. But there are some differences that might come into play in kind of that application evaluation piece. And so if you don't mind, Sophia, I think I'm going to pick on you. And if you don't want to answer, you don't have to. But since you have worked on both full-time and part-time, this might be a good for you. Are there any components of the application that you think maybe are more important for a full-time versus a part-time program? Are there any differences on kind of how you evaluate candidates? Anything that you emphasize more? Any insight you have to share would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously there's not one thing that we're like, oh, if a part-time student has this or if a full-time student has this. Obviously it's a holistic review of the application. But I think something we really like to see on our part-time program side is work experience and depth of work experience. So not just having been at one kind of standstill position in their career, there's been career progression, whether it's even if they're jumping from company to company, as long as there's kind of growth and growth in their career, we really like to see that on our part-time job, especially because our professional students have 8 years of work experience. And I've sat in class with professional students, and the way the conversations they have, the experiences they bring. We also have students from all different types of backgrounds. So that's something that we have really focused on the professional side, to the point where we're test optional on that side. And then when you kind of flip it to the full-time side, we are dealing with younger students there. So that's where that test score comes in, maybe a little heavier. That career progression is going to look a little more standstillish. Maybe they have 2, 3, 4 years of work experience compared to that 5, 6, 7 years of work experience in those job changes. So I think those are kind of off the top of my head two more like in differences. But I think realistically, like our full-time student and our professional student, they're really similar to each other. In the second year, everyone takes electives together, so they're all mixed in together anyways. So it's kind of harder to tell the difference, but we do see it in the work experience, and we love to see that like depth of work experience and growth in career. I don't know if that answered your question.
That's great. Perfect. Anybody
Yeah.
else want to chime in on anything, like whether they be comparatively or as a component? Jessica, I saw you took yourself off mute. Feel free to jump in.
I completely agree with Sophia, and I think at Questrom, we do have fairly similar class profiles for our full-time and part-time programs. Something that I always say on the full-time side is we may press you a bit more on your goals. So, what is your post-MBA goal immediately after completing the 2 years of our program? What is your long-term goal? And we also are going to see if you have a backup. Again, a lot of full-time students are looking to make a more major career switch. So, getting a sense that you've thought this through, that you also are flexible and adaptable and, open to working with, career teams and open to kind of exploring different opportunities. So I would say when admissions committee is looking at working professionals versus full-time, we may press a little bit more on your career goals. That's from my experience at Questrom, so I won't speak to all institutions, but that was one thing that stuck out to me.
Yeah, great point, right? Because after a full-time program, you need to get a job.
Yeah.
Working professionals, you already have the job. Yeah, Chris, jump on in.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, and also it works with the ROI question. So the point about increasing salary, applying what you've learned immediately in the workplace, all makes sense. And as Jessica said, yeah, traditionally you do look more deeper into what someone wants to do after they graduate from a full-time MBA. And I don't know if everyone on the panel will agree with this. Certainly we're seeing it more, certainly with the European schools anyway at the moment, is more and more people who are doing professional programs and executive MBAs are doing so to change industries as well. Now, five years ago, I was very rarely ever seeing that, in all honesty. Of course, it happened. But we've never necessarily really encouraged someone to apply to do a professional program to make that huge industry change, as you often or accustomed see on full-time MBAs. So I thought that was worth mentioning, because although I feel it's still relatively new, it feels like it's something that's going to increase or continue to steadily increase over the coming years. So if there are any individuals on this call who are thinking, you know what, that is what ultimately my end goal would be, don't think that should now automatically dissuade you from undertaking a professional MBA if there are other elements of professional programs that suit what it is that you're looking for in your life, in your professional career, with your lifestyle, etc. And that is, of course, an additional ROI point for many people now, as well as a third one.
I think that's a great point, Chris, because whether you graduate from the part-time program or the full-time, you're getting the same degree. You get an MBA from that institution, and so that's same diploma you get at the end of the day, which I think is really important. And it's one of the things that I think is wonderful about admissions, but also makes it very hard, is there's very much as much art as there is science in what we do in admissions, and there's not often hard and fast rules. So there's not a rule that says, if you want to change industries, you have to do a full-time program. That's not a rule. It's a very ambiguous kind of general piece of guidance, but certainly there's not a rule to say that. So it's really about finding that program that's the right fit. Yeah, Sophia, jump on in.
Yeah, I do want to say on that we are definitely seeing a lot of professional students do those industry shifts on our side as well, Chris. So it's not just on in the European schools. But I do want to mention that while it's not a hard and fast rule, you have to do full-time programs, there are certain industries where you do need an internship. So when you're looking at different professional programs, definitely make sure if the industry you're interested in, the biggest one probably being investment banking, is going to require an internship. So I know some professional programs don't allow for internships. So you really want to make sure, and back to Casey's point of like reflecting on what you want and what your bandwidth is into the program, like making sure that that is the industry you're looking for and what you're looking to do. So doing that research and doing those things ahead of time is really helpful, in connecting with admissions counselors. But definitely just note that some programs won't let you do an internship. We do, but I know some don't. And then it will also take up more of your time, especially if you're going down the recruiting aisle. So I always joke that our professional students who do recruiting, especially for the big consulting companies, have 27 hours in their day, because I genuinely don't know how they do it. They're really impressive individuals, but it's definitely doable. But just something to note that will shift what program you're looking at and what kind of mindset you need going into a program, and the industry. The industry is really important, especially when you look at what's possible. If you want to go into consulting, we see, at least on our side, students recruit in their second year without ever doing an internship and get into consulting. But elephant in the room, there are some industries that do require internships, so just make sure your program aligns with that. I always like to asterisk that in any professional program thing that I'm doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think kind of back to something we mentioned earlier, the biggest piece of this is first figuring out through self-reflection what it is you want to do. And I think the other nice thing about an MBA program is you might get exposed to things you weren't aware of before. And to Casey's point, the people sitting next to you in the classroom are going to be bringing in their everyday real world experiences when you're in a working professionals program, which is a great opportunity to hear about other industries. And so you definitely might change your mind, and that's totally fine. But having a good plan coming in will absolutely help you use your time wisely. We are going to take some questions from the audience. There was one that came in earlier that I think is somewhat around this piece of like finding something that's the right fit for you. And I'm going to direct this question to Jen. I hope she's okay with that. But Jen, you mentioned at Carey, you have some master's programs as well. So there's a question about what's, broadly speaking, the difference between a master's program, a master's in some sort of business or management versus an MBA program.
Oh, sure. Right. So we have a bunch of 30 credit Masters of Science programs at Hopkins. And then we've got the 54 credit MBA. So logistically speaking, this is pretty obvious. one of those is less expensive and takes a little less time. But that's obvious. Students make appointments with me throughout the week, Zoom, phone call, and a big one at Hopkins that comes up is, should I do the Master's of Science in Healthcare Management, or should I do the full MBA with a specialization in healthcare management? Um, Broadly speaking, that I would argue that 54 credit MBA is still, while the Masters of Science programs are very popular, is still the the biggest, most well-known credential. I think so, but not, I mean, that could be shifting. Um, and it's a generalist degree. Sure, you can specialize, but it's going to prepare you for a wide variety of industries. Um, and if you're going to lead a hospital, there's a bunch of physicians in the program. At Hopkins, for example, they do the MBA. They don't do the smaller degree. Um, but if you are very focused, if you know that you just need this finance expertise or real estate expertise or marketing, whatever it may be, then yeah, then maybe that's all you need is the 30 credit degree. So that's a general answer, but how do you figure it out? Well, individuals within your network, your organization, the schools that you're interested in, their alumni base, their career counselors, their admissions people. I mean, I would talk to them and say, here are my goals. What do you think? How did you get there? And then the more people you talk to, it becomes obvious. So lots of options for everyone here, and you're doing a great start by just coming to this. So, keep talking to people.
Anybody else want to chime in on that before we move along? The other thing I'll say is, broadly speaking, usually specialized master's programs are entry-level master's programs. You usually don't require any work experience. So if you're a current college student, you could absolutely jump right into a master's program. But once you have some work experience under your belt, you're probably looking a little more like an MBA student. Again, we're not here with the hard and fast rules today. Speaking, that's what we're looking at. So yeah, if you looked at profiles, definitely that average age is going to be pretty different across the two programs. There is also a question here about kind of choosing the best program. So I think we've talked about this. This has kind of been like a theme throughout the day, has been like doing research on programs. But does anybody else have any thoughts on just maybe general advice on picking a program that's best for you, or any resources or other things to look at or consider when thinking about programs that are best? Jessica, I see you're already off mute, so I'm going to let you go first.
I have a couple thoughts. I would say, kind of going off what Jen was saying, mentioning a health sector management specialization, right? Really look at what the specific institution offers in terms of customization and specializing, and, how does their curriculum align with your career goals and your interests? Is the institution you're looking at known for something? And do they offer electives as part of the MBA program? If so, how many electives will you get to take? And, how customizable is that curriculum? I think, another important thing, which I think we've mentioned, but if not, I'll say it again, is, really beyond talking to admissions, because we love talking to you, we're happy to help at any point. But it is so important to talk to current students, talk to alumni, really get that firsthand insights into the program, because community and fit is a huge piece as well. And really just hearing from a current student or alumni can really help in that decision-making process.
Yeah, and something to add to Jessica's point about talking to students and alumni. Also, if there's someone at your company that you really like with their job, or you think their job is really cool, sit them down, ask them for a coffee chat and see what degree they have. Maybe it was that specialization in healthcare like Jen was talking about, or maybe they do have their MBA, but that can also kind of help narrow down what kind of program is the right fit for you, especially if there's someone at your current company that you think is really interesting or you think has a really cool job. Just kind of seeing what their track was, and if they got an MBA, ask them about their experience. Did they do part-time, full-time? What was their community like, their network, all of those really great things.
And go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I think they're really good points by Jessica and Sophia, especially from taking a very personal approach, thinking about what works for you as an individual. I guess more of a general point for the audience. I genuinely don't believe there's been a better time for a working professional to embark on an MBA whilst working full time. And the reason why I sincerely say that is because of the wealth of options available to all of you. You heard in all of our introductions some differences from Casey speaking about 100% fully online MBA. I think Jen reeled off a reel of different MBA programs that they had at Johns Hopkins. But of course, there's many other programs from our colleagues who are not here today. But I think one of the ways that you should be approaching your research is to be thinking about structure and format. And I would even go as far to say structure and format should potentially trump the school. And I say that as an MBA program, one of the top 5 MBAs in the UK, one of the top 50 MBAs in the world. But I would still recommend to people like yourselves to potentially, if you were looking at, I don't know, whoever the 9th best school in the UK is, that structure of the program might work better for you than at Alliance Manchester. And it is thinking about the things. Do you want something that's 100% online? If you do, that's great, because there's a wealth of options available to you. Do you want that traditional executive MBA with about 70, 80 days face-to-face contact? If you can commit to that from your professional side and from your personal side, and you can afford the fees, then what an experience that would be to do a traditional executive MBA. Then you've got, a couple of us have mentioned hybrid programs where, yes, we absolutely embrace the online element, but we also still see the importance of the face-to-face. That's going to work for some people. Some people will want more of a local MBA, which they can do on an evening in that particular city or country that they live in. So I think my general piece of advice is to think long and hard on the type of structure that you ideally want. And the good news there is, whatever your brain tells you ideally want, it is going to be out there because of the wealth of programs available to you. So hopefully that's been of use.
I think that is really good advice, Chris. And I often, when I talk to candidates in something like our MBA launch program, they're like, well, what are the options out there? And it's like, well, what do you want? Because some MBA program somewhere has invented it. And I promise has it. And in some combination between fully online and fully in person, there is pretty much everything in between, including elsewhere in the world. So I think that's great advice. Absolutely. Wonderful. I like this question. So there's a question here. I think I'm going to answer. I think I'm going to ask this correctly. So should candidates basically take electives in their current experience or dip into new areas? So for example, if someone is a marketing director, should they take marketing electives or choose a different area to be more well-rounded? Any thoughts on this? I have thoughts, but
if no one else is
jump on it. Yeah.
Jump on it, I'll jump on it. So at Rice, we offer over 100 electives for our MBA students in their second year. So you have a lot to pick from. And my piece of advice to students is take what interests you. If it's marketing classes and you're a marketing director, go for it. But if you're a marketing director and an energy course really interests you, you're most likely not going to be able to take another energy course with students who are going into energy or something like that. So I say take what interests you. I know our students love our entrepreneurship classes, even if they're not going into entrepreneurship. They want to see, how does an entrepreneur think, how to kind of go down that path of acquiring companies. So things like that. So take what interests you. I would feel I would encourage you not to feel boxed by what you're currently doing or what you want to do, or what your next step is. So that, and also what I recommend as you're doing your research is see what alumni perks have. I think this is pretty common, but a lot of schools offer continued learning for their alumni, so you can go back and audit classes after you graduate. So if there's electives you didn't get to do, or you switch careers and you're in a new industry, you can always go back and take more electives. So make sure you research those alumni perks as students. Chris?
Yeah, just very briefly. So my personal view is, if you are marketing manager, marketing director, I would try to embrace uh, new topics, new electives to learn something new. To give you an example of that, a few years ago, recruited a highly successful entrepreneur. Got quite close to him. He was enjoying his program. Then he was after about 14 months, so he was getting into his electives. Bumped into him, and he was not happy with one of his electives. I said, "What's that elective?" And he was an entrepreneurship elective. And I just thought, well, this guy had 25 years of experience, had literally accomplished it all. And I could actually see, well, yeah, you didn't really need to take that. And his answer to me was, but I wanted an A. And I'm like, no one at that level really cares too much about the grade. So there's an example of someone who really should have selected a different type of elective in my eyes. Although he did get an A, so yeah.
I think that's to Casey's point earlier of who's sitting next to you in the classroom. He's probably a great teammate for whatever work they had to do. If you got paired with him on some group project, it's probably great. Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much. Thank you, audience, for great questions. I do want to wrap us up today and give each of our panelists the opportunity to share maybe a favorite piece of advice for candidates, or a favorite admissions tip, whatever's kind of on their mind today as we wrap up. So I'll have you each, if you don't mind, kind of share your tip or advice. And then we'll wrap up today. So I think we'll kind of, let's do the reverse order of introduction. So I think Jen, we'll start with you and go backwards from there.
Oh, sure. Thanks, Ashley. This was fun, and I really like all of you guys, the other panelists. Well, I think I already shared my big tip. I'm a former career advisor, by the way, fairly new to admissions. So just the idea of talking to people. I love what you said, Sophia, about like identify someone within your organization who you think has a cool job. But that's been covered, so I'll go with the practical. Since you're working professionals, you probably haven't written an essay, or most of you haven't written an essay question in a while. I think most of the schools here probably require one or two. Don't save it to the last minute. Don't be intimidated by it. You're not applying to a journalism program or a PhD in English. We just want to know a little more about you, what your goals are. But with that said, get at least two people to proofread it. Thanks, guys.
Good practical advice. Chris, what's your piece of advice for us?
Yeah, I may have made a mistake, because I thought that was the question earlier when I was talking about the structures and formats. But just to again briefly sign off on that then. So as I said, the structure and format for me is the key thing that you should be thinking about. And if it is, let's just say, something that's 100% online that you're looking for, great. Don't waste your time looking at programs with the face-to-face elements if you've made that decision. And genuinely, I think anything that you are looking for, you should be able to find. So I won't dwell any longer.
Sophia.
Thank you guys all for being here. Echoing Jen, I really enjoyed the panelists as well. I think I'm going to give you just some admissions advice: is be authentically you. And the admissions, I think the last essays we ever want to read is like, this is why I'd be a good Johns Hopkins student or a good Rice student. It's like, we know your qualifications. We're going to see all of your professional work and your academic work. Show us who you are outside of the classroom and outside of the uh, professional work, because there's going to be times to shine in each application process. So make sure that you kind of make yourself a little more well-rounded and show your personality through the admissions process.
Casey.
Yeah, just echo what's been mentioned many times. Like, do your research. There is a program out there for you, whether that's based on modality or electives or career outcomes. Like, it's out there. Do your research. You're doing that here today already, so that's a great start. But don't be afraid to have one-on-one conversations as well. And then to kind of follow up on Sophia's advice, I think don't let your past hinder you and your goals as well. I know for us in particular, we are really looking at the application very holistically. We've talked a little bit about how the work experience is important. Like, yeah, we are going to look at that undergraduate GPA, but we are also going to understand if you have 10 to 15 years of experience and tell us like, hey, I wasn't serious back then. I spent too much time doing things outside of academics, and I have I'm more focused. I'm paying for the degree now, or whatever the case may be. So don't be afraid to kind of tell that story, and don't let one area that you feel maybe is a little weak hold you back from pursuing something that you think will have a long-term impact on you and your career.
And Jessica.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here. And I definitely agree with everything my fellow panelists have said, and they took a lot of good pieces of advice. So I definitely, agree with everything they've said. I think looking at admissions tips, again, it's certainly a holistic approach. And as Casey was saying, don't sell yourself short. If there's one piece of your application that's not as strong, that can be balanced by another piece that is really strong. So taking that the step further, do your research of institutions. A lot of schools will have their class profiles on the website. And so we don't post those to discourage folks. We actually, want you to look at it and say, okay, this might be an area for growth, or something that, the admissions committee might have concerns with my undergrad GPA. I'll include an optional essay and explain, other areas where I can make up for that low GPA, which might be a test score, might be, my professional work. I might, have quantitative experience through my professional experiences. So that GPA alone shouldn't define me. So don't let those class profiles intimidate you, but do look at them and kind of have that help you as you approach the application process.
Well, great advice. Thank you all so much for being here. Huge thank you to our panelists today for making the programming possible. So thank you to them for supporting the work that we do here at Forté. And I know you all will have many opportunities to explore lots of different MBA programs. We certainly hope you consider one of our amazing partner institutions like those we featured today. If you have any questions about the programming that we do at Forté or anything else, feel free to let us know. We're happy to help. Otherwise, thank you all for being here today. A recording of this will be available on our YouTube channel. And thank you again to our amazing panelists. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day. Thanks, everybody.